G'day everyone, I'm Dave. Thanks again for joining me. Well, this week is a bit of a mixed bag, but basically I've been doing a lot of work with my AI assistant, my AI LLMs, and I've got to the point where you really do think of them just as a working colleague. When you've been doing intense coding, which is what I've been doing now for a month straight, you start to actually interact a lot with your AI assistant, and sometimes they're brilliant and sometimes they leave you speechless. You're just like, oh, I cannot believe this. Arguing. It is just really like having well, not arguing, but disagreeing, changing this, can you do that this way? Like a true collaborative effort with any person you work with. So that is a really interesting phenomenon, I think, and I think people will find the more they work with the LLMs, you'll find the little nuances and way to change them. So I want to give you a few tips and tricks today as to what I've discovered, because I'm sure a lot of you are doing coding and what I suppose they call vibe coding or whatever. But basically you've got an idea, you want to get it done, you know a bit about coding, you've got a basic knowledge. AI is unbelievable for debugging, it is fantastic. But what I have discovered is a few tips and tricks that I want to share with you. I also want to bring up about the new Perplexity browser and a great interview with Aravind Srinivas, who is the CEO of Perplexity. Matthew Berman, one of my favourite YouTubers, did an interview with him, and some of the things he's got to say, he's a pretty straightforward guy, this CEO. I really like Aravind. I like the way he answers his questions, and he's a no bullshit guy, as we say. So we'll talk a bit about that. I also want to, maybe if we have time, talk about driverless cars. But anyway, so let's get into it now. So here's a couple of things that I've discovered, which I just think is, you may find interesting, particularly if you're working a lot with your AI and you really are backwards and forwards asking questions and getting things done. And also from a monetary point of view, there's a few tips and tricks here as well. So let's go down here and we'll have a look at what I've been doing. So we'll take this side here, which is char am chai, right? So the coding in this is fairly complicated. It's taken a lot of work to get to this stage, but I want to clone this site. So you would think it'd be easy. Okay, I want to clone this site from one site to another. It's not always that simple, but let's assume that we're heading down that path. So just to show you how this site works, we'll see here we've got the questions that have been asked by people up the top here and some of the latest events, what's going on down here, and then there's an interactive map. So just to show you how it works, let me ask a question here, and I'll ask one that I pretty well know I'll probably get the right answer for. Hey, I'm looking at buying a boat. Where can I go? All right, so it'll go in and it'll search its knowledge base, and then it will search wherever it can to find the answer that we're looking for. And what will happen is you'll find that the question, when it's answered, up here it will show as one of the last questions that were answered. Okay, so inflate your fun. All right, fantastic. It's given the address. Okay, so I'll let that continue on. Now, once that question's finished answering, then what happens is I'll refresh the page here. And we can see here boat supplies. So that was the latest question asked. And over here on the map, it will actually start to fill out the information over here as well. So if I zoom in a bit more, so this function of actually, boat supplies. Okay, there we go. So it's put it in there. So if we go down here and we have a look at the layout, that's fine. That's the function. Okay, so let's code it and let's use our friendly LLM to help us. All right, so Calak, which is the site I'm cloning, did a pretty good job first up, okay? But case in point, when I ask the question here, the 5 figures aren't showing up over here, and this looks just slightly different to this, okay? So if we can just see the layout there. So great job at cloning, in all did a good job. But what do they say? 90% of the work is easy, the last 10% is hard, right? So cleaning up the code takes a long time. So for those of you that have actually done a bit of coding with an LLM, you'll discover that there are big variances. So let's jump over to here and we will go and have a look at some of the coding, all right? So what I decided to do was I'd been using ChatGPT for a long time, and I can run a particular function on ChatGPT, right? So back up here for a minute. Okay, so when I run a function on ChatGPT, let's say that's for one part of the code. You can open up another browser version and then go to another part of the code and open up another browser session and go to the other part of the code. The problem is on the $20 a month plan, which I still think is the best value you can get, $20 US, for the ability to use all the features of OpenAI, ChatGPT. Basically, you can run out of your credits pretty quick with your O3 model if you're on that plan, but also I find that it answers a lot slower. So I was, like everybody else, going, oh, really, should I just update to the $200 a month plan? I mean, that's 10x. Now, I know you can 10x your productivity, but then I basically thought, well, I'm still going to have the same issue. I still got to open browser windows, because even though the AI is really clever, if you're working on a particular problem, and I'll get onto this in a minute, what you really need is you need to be able to have a separate thing running. So what I did in my wisdom, or my not wisdom, I decided to use another LLM. Now, I regularly use Perplexity, and I regularly use Claude, and I regularly use DeepSeek. They're all very, very good. And sometimes I'll use Google. In fact, I use Google for imaging and stuff as well. So there's plenty of choice out there for what you can use. But I decided to go for Perplexity because I really do like Aravind. I like what he says. I like his plans. And his LLM is very, very good. And let's have a look at the difference here, right? So the first thing that I would say is, when you're coding, if you have got a big chunk of code, say 1,000 lines of code, right? You really don't want to be patching it if you can. You really want an output all the time. What I do find with ChatGPT is you're constantly arguing to get that output, right? Sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't work. I found with Perplexity, so I'll go back down here now. Right, back down here. Okay, with Perplexity, when I'm doing coding, I find that it finds the correction. So if I'm looking for a particular thing, like something I wanted to isolate and fix, great for comparing stuff, then it will actually print the full code in one window, very, very easy to cut and paste back into your code base, right? So this is about 1,000 lines of code, fair bit of code. You can see there, it keeps going. Now, the one thing I do find is these are little things that are little annoying things. You've got to scroll to the end of the code before you paste, because it doesn't always finish the code. So that's a trap for young players, as they say. But when you get to the end of the code, you've got to scroll all the way back up again to be able to click copy, right? So that's not productive at all. With OpenAI's model, you can actually just click anywhere to copy, right? So that's one thing that I found. But it is very, very good at doing that. So that's the first tip and trick. The next one is, if we go back over to OpenAI here, and we have a look at their code, you'll see how it wants to print the code in chunks for you to copy. See, part 2. It sometimes will print a downloadable file, but it does prefer to do this method, which again is okay. But the problem that you face, and this is where you constantly start to argue with your LLM, is I took a simple piece of code and I said, I want you to create one update and print in full. I did this 3 times. And then what you find is you start arguing with your LLM because it doesn't do the job. So all 3 chunks, here they go. I paste them sequentially. They are exactly like Chai, the full code, nothing new. So then it's not the full code, right? So you've got the original code and then the code that ChatGPT did. So I like to do this with my LLM. All right, so I put in one code, it's 835 lines, the other's 477. Okay, so how come when you went to reprint this, you only reprinted 477 lines, not 835? I rest my case. All right, so then it goes to the task of printing it out, but you needed to prompt it to do that, okay? Now, the other thing that's really interesting that I recommend you do, I'll go back here again now. What I recommend you do is, when you're doing something complicated, right? So say there's multiple steps, you're trying to patch a program or you're doing whatever, right? This is a really good trick, and I've noticed it with, now I'm actually paying the $20 for Perplexity and the $20 for ChatGPT. I will have both those open. So I go to one and I go, okay, with what you've just done, write me a complete prompt as if I was an LLM, right? This is not rocket science, but basically it then consolidates everything it's done, puts it in. Then you take it to the other LLM and you put that in. And you improve upon it, and you just keep going backwards and forwards, and eventually you get some really good prompting and some good work, to the point where you basically are creating the ability to get the task done that you've done in the past that has taken a lot of arguing with your LLM. So that's the first piece of information. The second one is, what do I think about instead of paying $200 for OpenAI as opposed to 40 and 40? Well, let's say you wanted to go to Claude because you did a lot of coding. I think theirs is 30 US a month. So for, basically, what's that, 30, 40, for that amount of money, it's a lot cheaper than 200, and it's not a bad way to go. So I would recommend giving that a go first if you're on the machine all day, every day talking to LLMs, because not only are you just putting all your eggs in one basket, you've got a crossflow. Now, having said that, going forward, as you know, things might change, but at the moment, I think that's quite a good way to go. Okay, so the next bit of news that I want to cover is with Perplexity and them launching their new browser. Now, we'll have a quick look at that in a minute, but let's hear some of the things that Aravind's got to say. So we'll go down here now and we'll have a listen to some of the things that he has to say, particularly about what his vision is. So we'll go down here now and put this on.
Working on this product, and so we hope that'll be a good barrier to entry in terms of, like, you know, not just launching the first version of the client, but continual upgrades and continually shipping new things and committing to like a decade of work here.
Yeah,
that's what we
They're
hope.
talking about the new browser.
so you're obviously hyper competitive. I can see that. And then Google is going to continue to add AI features into the browser. OpenAI, I think, is rumored they're maybe launching a browser soon. How do you stay competitive? Like what differentiation do you see as you continue to evolve?
I mean, the argument against Google is the same thing that we've had for core Perplexity was with Google, which is
economics.
If agents are the ones clicking on links, reading through them, and like making like actual purchase decisions for you, and actually doing the purchases for you, like why are like businesses spending that many billions a year on Google AdWords?
Exactly.
It feels like a complete like failure of the promises you keep to your advertisers, which they're all believing they're getting real human clicks. And a human could just prompt the AI to say, hey, like, you know what, like when you're actually going to Google, ignore all the sponsored links and just click on the real ones. And read all the reviews on like these sites, and go to watch all these YouTube videos, read all the reviews, then click on the best one and buy that stuff for me. And I completely delegated everything to you. Just confirm with me before you buy. If I say this and it spends like, you know, 10 or 15 minutes doing this, it's able to stitch together this long horizon task and comes back to me and says, hey, like, yeah, this is what I found, and this is what I think caters to you because this is what you like and care about, and I'm going to go ahead and buy, and like, do you approve it? And it's like, yeah, go ahead. So then why are the other people bidding on this AdWord spending so much money?